Paris on Valentine's night glows warm against the February cold. Steamy windows, red ribbons on doors, every small restaurant overflowing with couples. Except one table. ENFJ warmth moves through the city with quiet intention. ISFJ steadiness with soft, familiar calm. Two men who didn't plan to find anyone tonight. One booked a table for one without realizing the date. The other walked in like he always does, a regular who forgot what day it was. This is where their night begins. This is Men Being Too Intimate, Season 2. A table for one. February rain came down in a thin, misty curtain over Paris. The kind that blurred lights into soft halos and made strangers walk a little closer to one another. Adrien stepped off the curb in front of Beetroot, a tucked-away neighborhood restaurant he'd bookmarked weeks ago. He'd wanted warmth tonight. A quiet meal, a soft atmosphere. Something comforting after a long week at the museum. He pulled out his phone. His reservation blinked up at him. Table for 7:30 p.m. The words felt suddenly loud. He hadn't realized when he booked, he just clicked the first open slot. But now, standing in front of a restaurant with heart-shaped window decals and couples lined up under shared umbrellas, he exhaled, almost amused. Valentine's Day, the one day he never paid attention to, because it always belonged to other people. He pushed the door open. Warmth washed over him instantly. Candle glow, the smell of butter and garlic. Steam against fogged windows. Glasses clinking softly. His coat dampened on his shoulders as he stepped in. The headwaiter looked up, someone calm, sharp-eyed. Someone who managed Valentine's chaos with a practiced grace. He scanned his list, then met Adrien's gaze with a small, knowing smile. Adrien felt his chest tighten with a shy heat. The waiter led him through crowded rows of tables. Every seat full, every pair leaning close over dessert plates. Adrien wove between murmured conversations, soft laughter. Hands gently meeting in the middle of tables. Then, a corner. Small, warm. One plate, one napkin. One candle burning steadily like it was trying its very best. Adrien sat down, coat draped over the chair back. He let out a slow breath. The candle flickered. Paris murmured outside the window. He could almost pretend the night wasn't meant for lovers. That a table for one wasn't a spotlight on his quiet loneliness. He smoothed the edge of the menu. A table for one, just enough. At least that's what he thought. Julien pushed open the door with a hand braced against the small wooden frame, cold rain clinging to his coat. He stepped inside expecting the usual sight. Quiet tables, slow conversations, the comfort of routine. Instead, the room was glowing. Every table carried a small candle he didn't recognize. The kind wrapped in a tiny red sleeve. The windows were fogged from too many warm bodies. Soft laughter and close whispers drifted through the room. He stopped just inside the doorway. He absolutely knew what tonight was. He'd passed florists overflowing with roses. He'd seen couples bundled together on the metro. But he hadn't expected this little neighborhood restaurant, his quiet, tucked-away refuge, to be swept up in the Valentine's rush. He took in the sight slowly, registering each detail he'd never seen here before. The waiter dressed just slightly nicer than usual. Julien let out the softest breath through his nose. For a second, he considered turning around. Not because he felt out of place, he was used to being alone, but because it felt wrong to take up space in a room made for tenderness. But before he could step back into the rain, the headwaiter noticed him. His face brightened instantly. "Julien! Bonsoir." Julien relaxed a little. He wasn't special here, but he was familiar. "I didn't realize you'd be this full tonight." The waiter's laugh was warm. "Valentine's, my friend. Lovers need food, too." Julien nodded, eyes sweeping the packed room again. He spotted couples everywhere, hands brushing, shoulders touching. Normally, he didn't mind it. Normally, he even found it beautiful. Tonight, he just felt surprised. "I don't think you have space for one more," he murmured. "I'll come back tomorrow." But the waiter shook his head immediately. "I'll find a way." Julien blinked, caught somewhere between touched and embarrassed. The waiter lowered his voice. "We do have one seat. For one." Julien followed his subtle glance. Toward the back corner, where a man sat alone, elegant posture, soft eyes studying the menu. Someone who didn't quite fit loneliness. Even if tonight placed him there. If he doesn't mind sharing, the waiter said. Julien hesitated for a polite beat. The kind of courtesy that lived deep in him, but the truth was, he didn't want to step back out into the cold. And something about that man in the corner, the quiet warmth in his expression, felt safe. Julien swallowed. Okay, he whispered, if he's willing. The waiter smiled, half fond, half triumphant, and moved toward the corner table. Julien watched as he approached the man. Watched the man look up, startled. Watched the waiter gesture gently in Julien's direction, and for a moment, Julien felt the strangest mix of nerves and curiosity. A table for one, he thought. Maybe not tonight. Adrien had just decided what to order. When the soft shuffle of footsteps stopped beside his table, he looked up. The head waiter was there, hands folded politely. Expression gentle but carrying something tentative. Adrien straightened a little. Monsieur Morel, may I ask you something? Adrien blinked. A question at a restaurant on Valentine's Day. This already felt unusual. The waiter stepped slightly aside, angling his body so Adrien could see past him. Toward the entrance, a man stood there. A quiet presence. His eyes were warm even from a distance. Adrien felt something shift in his chest. The waiter lowered his voice. Would you mind sharing your table? Adrien glanced at the empty seat across from him. The candle between them flickered, almost expectant. A table for one. A quiet night, and suddenly an unexpected possibility. His first instinct was kindness. His second was curiosity. Adrien looked again at the man by the door. Julien, though he didn't know his name yet, wasn't pushing forward, wasn't assuming anything. Just waiting for permission he wasn't sure he deserved. Adrien felt something soften. I don't mind, he said. If he's comfortable, I'd be happy to share. The waiter's smile deepened with relief and a hint of mischief. Merci, monsieur. He returned to the entrance. Adrien watched, not openly, but enough to catch the moment Julien's shoulders loosened, when he heard the answer. Then the waiter gestured him in. Julien approached slowly through the narrow aisle, careful not to disturb couples leaning into each other. He kept his gaze low until the last moment. Then he looked up, and Adrien met those gentle, steady eyes for the first time. A quiet recognition pulsed between them. Julien offered a small, shy smile. Adrien returned it with something soft and inviting. So much for a table for one, Adrien thought. Maybe this seat had never been meant to stay empty. Julien settled into the seat slowly. Placing his gloves on his lap, menu lifted like a shield. Adrien lifted his own, offering a small, polite smile, before letting both of them slip into a quiet moment of reading. Except, only one of them was actually reading. Julien already knew this menu by heart. He knew the soups, the stews, even which dessert sold out first on rainy nights. He kept his eyes down anyway, trying not to look directly at the man sitting across from him, this elegant stranger with soft eyes, and the kind of presence that felt warm. Adrien, meanwhile, studied the menu with careful attention. He browsed slowly, thoughtfully, genuinely. Julien lowered his menu a little, then set it down. His fingers instinctively reached for the small candle between them, gently brushing the warm glass, as if grounding himself in the soft glow. He turned it slightly, watching the flame bend and straighten. He didn't mean to look nervous, but he was. He kept his gaze anywhere but forward. But eventually, inevitably, he looked up. Adrien's eyes were already on him. Julien froze for half a second. The candle flickered between them, catching the moment in warm gold. Adrien offered the softest smile, the kind that didn't push, but welcomed. Julien's breath hitched almost imperceptibly. He nodded back, polite but slightly flustered, as if acknowledging something real without naming it. Around them, the restaurant moved with Valentine's noise, but the little table felt suspended in its own quiet. Adrien lifted his menu again, but his eyes lingered a moment longer on the man across from him. Julien lowered his, fingers brushing the candle holder once more as if steadying himself. Neither said anything. Not yet. Julien inhaled softly. Have you decided? Adrien's smile tugged gently at the corner. Not yet, he admitted. Everything looks good. And you seem to know this place better than I do. Julien gave a tiny, nervous laugh. He folded his hands, thumb brushing his knuckles. I live nearby. I come here often. It's small, but the food is honest. Adrien liked that answer, liked the way Julien said honest. Then I'll take your recommendation seriously, Adrien said, leaning in. What should I try? Julien hesitated, then pointed subtly at the menu. Adrien listened with a kind of attention that felt rare. He tilted his head, considering the options with a small smile. Then he looked up, eyes warmer than before. And what about you? Julien blinked, caught off guard by the question. He tucked a strand of hair behind his ear and answered honestly, I'm thinking main only. Adrien nodded thoughtfully, and Julien felt the faintest heat spread up his neck, not from embarrassment, but from being listened to so carefully. The candle flickered, silence stretched, and then the waiter appeared. He moved like someone who had seen too many Valentine's days to take any of them too seriously. He clasped his hands behind his back, glancing between Adrien and Julien with a knowing spark. Have we decided? Adrien opened his mouth, but the waiter lifted a hand lightly. But before you choose, let me explain tonight's special menu. Julien closed his eyes for one brief, doomed second. The waiter cleared his throat theatrically, drawing in a few amused looks from surrounding tables. Tonight, our menu Saint-Valentin is designed for two. Roasted figs with honey, 2 mains of your choice, and a dessert meant to be appreciated together. But I can bring 2 plates. Adrien lifted a brow, intrigued. Julien went perfectly still. The waiter leaned closer, lowering his voice. It is cheaper, and frankly, much better shared. Julien immediately shook his head. The full set would be too much. The waiter turned to Adrien. And you, monsieur? Would you like the full Valentine's experience or something lighter? Adrien didn't answer right away. He looked across the table instead. Julien met his eyes. A brief pause. Then the smallest nod. Adrien turned back to the waiter. The choice already made between them. The waiter beamed. He winked and took the main order for 2 and vanished into the kitchen. Julien let out a breath he'd been holding. He's always like this, he murmured, voice barely above a whisper. Adrien folded his menu, resting his elbows lightly on the table. The dinner had just begun, but already the night felt different. The appetizers arrived with a soft clatter, steam curling upward in thin, fragrant ribbons. 2 plates not matching perfectly, but clearly dressed for Valentine's Day. A tiny beetroot heart on Adrien's, a sliver of carrot cut into a heart on Julien's. Bright, savory color against warm roasted figs. Julien blinked at the garnish, just once. Adrien's mouth tugged into a quiet, hidden smile. The restaurant buzzed softly around them. The rustle of napkins, the slide of plates across tables, murmured conversations tucked into pockets of candlelight. But here, at this little corner table, the world slowed itself down. Julien lifted his fork, cutting into the fig with steady hands. The kind of quiet movement that said, he was still adjusting to the idea of not dining alone. Adrien followed suit, his posture warm, open, the candlelight catching the edges of his expression. The food was good, savory, warm, the kind that softened the cold from outside. Julien's shoulders gradually lowered with each bite, comfort finding him piece by piece, like warmth returning to chilled fingers. He glanced up once, briefly, long enough to catch Adrien tasting the fig, with the thoughtful seriousness of someone who valued food. Their eyes met for a half-second. Adrien gave a tiny nod. Julien brushed his thumb along the edge of his plate, a small habit, and Adrien watched with quiet interest. Julien felt it without looking up. The appetizers disappeared gently, bite by bite, as the night pulled them into a soft, unspoken rhythm that neither had expected. The mains arrived with quiet grace. Adrien cut into his first bite. Crisp skin, tender meat, the kind of warmth that spreads instantly. He paused, chewed once, then looked up, surprised by how good it was. Julien's eyes lifted, cautious at first. This is incredible. Thank you for recommending it. Julien's shoulders eased, just a little. You're welcome. Adrien tasted another bite, slower this time. Julien lowered his gaze. But he didn't hide the faint curve of his mouth. A comfortable pause settled. Adrien reached for the wine list left beside the candle. He hesitated just a moment, then asked lightly, "Would you like to share a bottle? It feels like a good night for one." Julien blinked, surprised by the gentle invitation. "Red?" Adrien agreed. The waiter returned, set a Bordeaux between them, poured 2 glasses, and left them in their small pool of warm light. They clinked softly. The wine loosened something in the air. Adrien leaned back a little, more relaxed now, more open. Julien took a sip, fingers brushing the stem of the glass, shoulders unwinding with each taste. "So," Adrien said, a lazy warmth entering his tone. "What else do they do well here, besides chicken?" Julien thought for a second, eyes flicking to the kitchen door. Adrien listened with interest, elbow lightly against the table. Julien looked up. A small, shy glance that held longer than before. The candle between them flickered, catching the rim of their glasses, coloring the moment with something warm and unspoken and just beginning. The wine softened the edges, the food warmed the center, and the two of them, quietly, slowly, started to lean into the night together. The mains were cleared away, with the slow, gentle rhythm of a restaurant that never rushed its regulars. Julien sat back slightly, still savoring the last warmth of thyme and roasted chicken. That was when the chef emerged, older, warm-eyed, apron dusted with flour. The kind of owner who treated his bistro like an extension of home. He made quiet rounds from table to table, nodding, checking in, offering short greetings to couples leaning close. When he reached Julien and Adrien's table, he slowed. Julien straightened subtly, the way someone does when they recognize an old neighbor. The chef's eyes warmed, as if seeing a familiar face with company was all the answer he needed. He gave a small, approving nod to Julien, a silent thanks for coming. Before moving on to the next table, Adrien watched the exchange with a quiet smile. He didn't comment on it. Moments later, the waiter arrived with their dessert, Valentine's Day special. 2 plates set down with the tiniest flourish. Not overly sweet, not flashy, just a soft chocolate cake, with a swirl of raspberry coulis, curved like a petal. But then, another item. A small, heart-shaped box, bright red, glossy, placed gently between their plates. From the chef. The waiter announced with a cheerful tilt of his voice. Julien turned automatically toward the kitchen. The chef was watching out of the corner of his eye, and when Julien met his gaze, the chef raised a discreet thumbs up. Julien's ears turned pink immediately. Adrien tried, truly tried, not to smile too broadly. But the combination of Julien's blush and the chef's earnest approval made it impossible. Julien opened the little box. With careful fingers, inside 4 small chocolates, each one different. Adrien leaned closer, voice warm with genuine delight. "That's very sweet of him." Julien swallowed, embarrassed but amused. "He probably thinks I brought someone for Valentine's." Adrien glanced at him. Soft, sincere. "Well, you did." Julien's breath caught, not dramatically. Just a quiet moment of realizing how much warmer the room felt. He looked back into the chocolate box, trying to hide the tiny smile that curved his lips. The candle flickered. The chef turned back to his kitchen, and between them the chocolates gleamed softly. A small, unexpected gift. The last of the Bordeaux clung to the bottom of the bottle, dark and warm under the low candle. Adrien lifted it gently, tipping the final splash equally between their glasses. A soft, unspoken one more moment together. Julien watched the wine settle, its deep red catching the candle flame, like a small ember floating in glass. Neither hurried to drink. The restaurant had softened into its late-night quiet, the post-dinner hum settling into a gentle murmur, chairs scraping softly from tables across the room, couples drifting toward the coat rack hand in hand. Adrien leaned back in his chair, hands loose around the stem of his glass, posture relaxed in a way that only comes after good food, good conversation, and a kind of unexpected comfort. Julien sipped his last mouthful of wine slowly, letting the warmth spread from tongue to chest. He set the glass down with a quiet breath, content, almost serene. Adrien mirrored him. Their glasses now empty, the candle between them burning low. The waiter approached with soft footsteps, placing 2 receipts on the table. They each took a receipt. They both began gathering their things, scarves, coats, phones. Little motions done in comfortable silence. It looked like the natural end of a night. The part where you stand, smile politely, say goodnight, walk separate ways. Outside the door, the February air rolled in cool and crisp. The night had settled into a quiet glow, pavements still damp, street lamps scattering light like golden petals across the ground. Julien tugged his scarf closer. Adrien zipped his jacket a little higher. They stepped away from the restaurant entrance, where warmth bled onto the sidewalk toward the chilly air, and the faint sound of distant traffic. For a few seconds they stood together, under the street lamp. 2 coats, 2 breaths blooming white, 2 hearts not ready to separate. Adrien looked over. The kind of look that tests a boundary, without crossing it. Would you... A pause, gentle. Like to walk a bit, if you're not in a hurry? Julien blinked in that small, startled way he had. The kind he tried to hide but never succeeded. He wasn't in a hurry, not even close. Yeah, he said quietly. His voice warmed despite the cold. I'd like that. Adrien exhaled, relief mixed with something quietly hopeful. And together, side by side, they stepped into the Paris night. Their breaths puffed white into the cold air, each exhale briefly visible before fading. A quiet harmony. Adrien walked with his hands in his pockets, shoulders loose, coat swaying lightly with each step. Julien walked with the quiet composure he carried everywhere. But tonight there was something gentler in his posture, something open. Every so often their arms brushed, not deliberately, not avoided either. A block later, the street widened into a charming little corner, a florist's stand still open despite the hour. Adrien slowed. Julien followed his gaze before he realized what was happening. Adrien approached the stand, exchanging a warm smile with the vendor and selecting a small bundle of roses. 5 wrapped simply in brown paper. Adrien turned back to Julien, smiling softly with the roses. Julien thanked and held the roses, the petals catching the soft glow of passing lights. After a minute, Adrien tilted his head. Which way is home for you? Julien hesitated. Just a small beat, then let out a shy breath. We actually passed it. Julien's ears warmed pink as he looked down at the roses in his hand. I didn't want to stop walking yet. Adrien stared for a second, then smiled. Something blooming in his chest. Julien's eyes softened. Adrien shifted, turning to him. His breath pooled warm in the cold air. I had a really good time, he said. Would you like to see each other again? Julien didn't blink. They exchanged phones. Their fingers brushed briefly. Numbers saved. Names typed, a tiny vibration confirming it. Adrien stepped back half a pace, giving space. I should let you go home, he said with a soft smile. But next weekend, let's plan something. Julien nodded, a shy, warm glow rising in his expression. I'd like that. He tucked the roses closer to his chest, turned toward his real street this time, walked with a little more lightness. Halfway to his door, his phone buzzed softly in his pocket. He stopped under a street lamp to check it. Adrien, thank you again. It was genuinely lovely meeting you today. He typed back, thumb steady. The night wrapped around him, and for the first time in a long time, he smiled his way up the steps of his home. Some evenings don't happen the way we expect. Some moments begin with a crowded restaurant, a table meant for one, a polite nod to a stranger, and end with a shared walk through quiet streets. Adrien didn't fall in love. Not yet. He simply found warmth in someone's steadiness. By someone who made the night feel less like Valentine's Day and more like possibility. And maybe that was always enough, because not every connection is a confession. Not every closeness turns into a promise. Sometimes the best part of two people's night is the quiet decision to keep walking a little longer. The ENFJ and the ISFJ, one offering intention, one offering steadiness, a pairing that doesn't rush, doesn't ask for more than the moment, and still leaves something soft behind. This was men being too intimate, a table for one. If this moment stayed with you, listen to more from Gay Audiobooks. where personality meets chemistry and quiet becomes everything. Subscribe, like, and follow for the next story. Also, my short novel, Men Being Too Intimate series, I Saw You First. One night only, when the car door closed, and more are now available on Kindle Unlimited. You'll find the link in the description. Please do have a read.